Hate is such an ugly word, and not one I throw around very often. I disagree with my political opponents, but I don't hate them. I think EA has been directly responsible for some of the biggest missed opportunities in the history of video games, but do I hate them for being the reason Spore 2 never happened, why the first one was such a buggy mess? Well, yeah, maybe a little, but listen, alright? What my screaming has just illustrated is that hate is an emotion of passion. One must first care about something in order to hate something. On that note, I fucking hate Princess Bubblegum. Okay, so people better than me have pointed out many of these things before, but I'd like to run through her various atrocious traits from her war crimes to emotional manipulation real quick, like numero 10, Finn. Arguably, the least awful of her various horrid acts was the way she dealt with Finn's crush on her. Hold on, I know. Hold on, I know! I am not going to say that in any way she owed him or should have reciprocated his romantic feelings towards her, in fact quite the opposite. The first couple of seasons, Finn has a schoolboy crush on this bizarre figure, a princess mostly in title and not in function. Her wishy-washy lack of willingness to address his obvious feelings at first feels like she's just trying to deflect, possibly because she has the same feelings. The actual reason is so much worse. Once you get past the early days of Adventure Time, it becomes clear that not only is Bubblegum well aware of the situation and willingly doing nothing about it, but she is way too old for him and lets him keep crushing on her because he's really great at cleaning up her messes. As the adult in this situation, it was her goddamn job to explain to Finn, as respectfully as she could, that they could never be together. Take this out of context of her being made of candy, with a 30-something or older woman using a 12-year-old's crush on her to manipulate him to doing chores for her, only stopping because he grew up enough to lose said crush. Jesus Christ. And no, I am not willing to accept that in any way it is ever acceptable, even in fiction, for people with that severe of an age difference to be together. I am looking at you, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The entire first 3 seasons are gross, and I will never see them as anything but gross. They are gross. Ew. God stop it! Numero deux. PB has a real problem with playing God. There are actually too many times she created life and fucked it up in some horrific way to list, so let's just check out her greatest hits. Lemon Grab, the eternally suffering Kim Jong-un lemon who's repeatedly referred to her as God and asked her to kill him, something she's unwilling to do despite doing exactly the same to Rattleballs, a perfectly loyal, sentient servant robot race that she committed genocide on for being too competent, and something she should have done to Goliad now that she's completely locked in psychic battle, but instead chooses to leave to Finn's clone, trapped with for an actual eternity. And I just want to take a second here to address, I'm not exaggerating or interpreting here. This isn't like when you hear people talking about Kirby as a god of destruction because it's funny and sort of supported by background information about the games. This is literally what happens in the show, and they make no effort to try and pretend that it's anything else. They show her as being fucked up. She just never has any consequences for this, and we all act like it's okay. Part Trace. Bubblegum, the God King. It has always amused me that Lemon Grab became a North Korea parallel when Bubblegum already fits that role so well, with a bit of added manipulative intellect. This bitch spies on all her citizens all the time. There are underground movements opposing her regime, which she doesn't feel the need to suppress only because she created the citizens she rules to be completely ineffective at opposing her. And before you say that she gave up on spying on her citizens, yes, she does make little steps every once in a while to try to improve on her awful ways, but as we can see in the future episodes, she completely backslides. Not even just like in the far distant future episodes, you know, the Greyballs and stuff where they see Starchy being kidnapped by the giant gumball guardian. No. We see her backslide multiple times afterwards, and while it's addressed and she maybe feels a little bad about it, she never suffers consequences for it. Her foreign policy is to sabotage any power large enough to rival her own completely unprovoked. I didn't have a segue to that, but it was important that I mention it. Alright, I think we get the picture. Believe me when I say her list of war crimes don't end there, but it's time to hit the main point. She's fucking gay! She has lesbo! She a big gay with a vampire! Whoa! During the time she's briefly deposed before Darth Finn puts her back in power through force against the wishes of every candy citizen who voted her out of office. I'm just kidding, that doesn't really happen. PB and Marceline develop a strange friendship, and possibly more. It's fine, I guess. They have alright chemistry, and by far the biggest thing they have going for them is their sense of history together and shared experiences as immortals. They share a little kiss in the finale to seal the deal, and while I haven't seen Distant Lands because I'm equal parts poor and lazy, I assume they're still together based on what little footage I've seen. The funny thing about this relationship is how much Marcy deserves it and how little PB does. Marceline has suffered a very, very long time alone, with many different phases of her life, each offering their own miseries, and still maintains her moral compass, overcoming both her demon and vampire nature to be a force of good. Princess Bubblegum has a brother who is as mentally fragile as tissue paper that is currently on fire, who she locked away in an eternal prison of coddling, using his life juice to power her insane machinations, with the claim that she's helping him but never letting him see the light of day unless he stopped producing candy water for a second. It really only gets worse from there. A romantic relationship can have many purposes in a good story, but the most common is as a reward, a slice of happiness in exchange for all the suffering a character went through earlier in the story. PB goes through no such suffering. She causes a staggering amount of the problems for all the main characters in the show, and is almost completely ineffectual at combating actual evil when the time comes. The writers know it too, always making sure to linger on PB's actions, but bizarrely never giving her any consequences for what she does. She has no redemption arc, no moment of recognizing the pain she's caused, not even a half-hearted apology to the people closest to her. The closest thing we get is her claiming to try to not be mean, and one time turning off the security cameras before presumably turning them back on the next week. As far as she's concerned, she's the good guy. Hell, in the brief time she wasn't ruler of the Candy Kingdom, she almost destroyed the world twice. Once by muffin-based Grey Goose and Arian, and again by sucking out all the Vampire King's evil and dumping it into a bucket. We seriously can't leave this bitch alone for 5 minutes! Oh, this put me in a bad mood. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this. Fuck Princess Bubblegum, we stand Lumpy Space Princess for new Queen of Ooh in this house.
Come along with me to a town beside the sea. We can wander through the forest and do so as we please. Come along with me to a cliff under a tree where we'll gaze upon the water in an everlasting dream.
Hi.